My name is Tigran Gambaryan. I'm a special agent with the IRS Criminal Investigation. I've been special agent since 2011. Right now, I'm assigned to our cyber task force or our cyber group in Washington, D.C. And through that, I'm also assigned to the National Cyber Investigative Joint Task Force, Office of Threat Pursued Virtual Currency Team. And as part of that, we deal with cyber threats as it relates to terrorism, criminal cases, and intelligence.
So who was Carl Mark Force?
Carl Force was a DEA agent out of Baltimore. He worked on the Baltimore Silk Road Task Force, separate from the New York Silk Road Task Force. And as part of that, he was the lead undercover agent that was in contact with Direct Roberts. They maintain a pretty close, contact for a good period of time, all the way up to Ross Ulbricht's arrest in San Francisco in 2013. But through that whole 4 months, they're in contact, I'd say nightly. And he was the lead undercover agent on that case.
And what do we know about his personal life?
He was, as far as I can tell, not getting into his personal life because I don't really know much about what he did with his kids or his wife, but he worked for 16 years. He worked in U.S. and he worked in Puerto Rico. Nothing that I know about him makes me think that he was anything but just a normal guy that kind of got, from at least what I've seen. And I don't know if there's any other evidence of him doing any other wrongdoings, but I know that what he did in this investigation was pretty bad. I don't know if he did anything else in any other cases, and I can't say that he has because there's no evidence suggesting that he did. But he lived a normal family. He was a soccer coach. He is very involved in religion, and yeah.
What kind of illegal activity did Forrest commit on the Silk Road?
Well, what he was charged with was money laundering, theft of government property. I think he was charged also obstruction of justice, or he pled guilty to it. But essentially what he did was he blackmailed Ross Ulbricht. He provided information to Ross Ulbricht that's related to the Silk Road investigation, and he laundered the proceeds. He used multiple personas, both sanctioned and unsanctioned, to steal money during an investigation of Silk Road.
How did he blackmail Ross?
Well, if you read the criminal complaint, he used at least 3 separate identities to contact Direct Roberts or Ross Ulbricht, which is French-made, Death from Above, and Knob being his sanctioned undercover identity that he was in contact with DPR for the months that he was working on the case. And if you read the complaint, he contacted Direct Roberts with his username Death from Above, which essentially saying, "I know what you did to Curtis Green." Curtis Green's name recently came out because he was at the sentencing for Shaun Bridges. Essentially saying, "I know what you did to Curtis Green," alluding to the fact that Ross Ulbricht had hired actually Carl to take Green out, because there's a contract killing, as the criminal complaint reads, and as the charges out of Baltimore suggest, there's a murder for hire. Ross Ulbricht basically paid Knob or Carl Force to kill Green, and he contacted using the Death from Above account. Carl Force contacted Ross Ulbricht and told him, "I know what you did to Green. Essentially, I'm going to come after you unless you paid such and such amount."
So he was essentially helping carry out an assassination, and then blackmailing about that assassination from a different account.
Yes.
And how did you first come to discover this?
Which part?
Well, I guess take me back to how you first even got the inkling of this guy, Carl Mark Force, like the very first sort of crumb.
Let me go back and see how much I can talk about. So essentially, there was a tip. There's a tip that came in suggesting that somebody may have been using an elite or a fake identity to cash out so much Bitcoin through an exchange, and that somebody
A law enforcement tip or just a general?
It's a general tip. Let's say
General.
a company.
A company.
Right. Let's
Okay.
say right. So saying that this came in that somebody's trying to cash out these bitcoins. They're using a fake name. Oh, and then they're sending in their DEA creds to essentially saying that they were working on the behalf of government and they're trying to liquidate their bitcoins. Through that, essentially, I followed it up through my contacts within federal government, finding out who this guy was. Through that, I found out that Carl was the undercover on the Silk Road case, and the identity that he was using, or the fake identity, was actually one of his undercover names. So through that, essentially, that's how the whole case started. That's the only information we had. Everything else that developed out of it was essentially just looking through evidence and financial analysis, just following the money. The only thing that we had was just that one piece. Everything else developed out of that. So there's not like, oh, hey, Carl is stealing all this money, he's also using his identities, or hey, Shaun is basically went into Silk Road and just went through and stole everybody's money. It wasn't any of that. It was a small piece of information, and essentially everything developed out of that.
What other kind of activity was he doing on the Silk Road other than blackmailing Ross and what was it? Was it just the blackmail? Is that where the money that was coming from that he was trying to launder, or was there other? Was he doing other things on there?
So when you say like, and I don't want to paint a picture that Ross was a good guy and he was a victim. I mean, just let's get that started. I mean, no matter what Carl did, or what was happening, everything that went down with Ross Ulbricht and Carl, none of it is, I guess, exculpatory. Everything that actually what Carl did was actually ties into the whole story, that Carl didn't trick Ross into hiring hitmen, and that's not how he went down at all. Ross Ulbricht independently came to that conclusion on his own and contacted Carl. I know it's people say, oh, of course he's an agent of the government. Of course that's what he's going to say, but that's honest. That's just the truth. I wish it wasn't, but it was. But through that, just to go into some of the other stuff, just get that out of the way. But the other stuff that Carl was doing on the side was essentially feeding case information or investigative information to DPR for money. Of course, not using his real name. And as the complaint says, he used various techniques. First, through Knob, or his sanctioned undercover identity, he was talking to Ulbricht and essentially saying that he has somebody else, a government agent, on his on the take. Is that, hey, this guy has information related to your case. He's going to provide it to you. And of course, Ross paid, and everything leading up to that, or all the conversation about the payment or the agent, was encrypted, PGP encrypted. None of it was coming through. The only part that kind of slipped out, and Ross screwed up on one of the messages, saying that, hey, I sent you that money. I sent you that 525 Bitcoin to the address you gave me. We didn't have the address, but we did know that on such and such a date, Ross made a payment and it went to Carl. So essentially, the hard part of that was that knowing where exactly that money went and tracking it down, knowing that Ross said, I paid you the money, now where's that going? So that was his one thing. And of course, French maid situation where he contacted Ross Ulbricht and basically saying like, hey, I have the name that such and such person provided to Department of Homeland Security related to the account that you hold at a Bitcoin exchange. Essentially trying to say that, hey, they know who you are, they have your name from a Bitcoin exchange, and I can tell you the name that was provided. And for that, everything was encrypted. All that communication was encrypted except for two messages, I believe, and one of them being the initial contact by Carl, which actually said that his name, Carl actually ended up signing Carl at the end of the message to DPR. And then the second one where Carl corrected himself, saying, actually, my name is Carla Sofia. And what followed was, I think it was 20 different, I guess, messages back and forth. And at the end of the thing, what kind of did Carl in was the fact that Ross kept a diary. And when he was arrested, that diary was analyzed. I analyzed that diary, saying that, hey, I paid French maid $100,000 on such and such a date. And when you actually, what I did is I went back and I said, so what is this actually worth on Bitcoin around the time where that payment was made? So I figured out it was approximately 770 Bitcoin. And sure enough, around that time, Carl deposited about 700 something Bitcoin into his account, which I traced back to the evidence that was seized during Silk Road investigation. And sure enough, that money came from Ross and went directly into Carl's account. So it's all following the money. I mean, that's what, I know it's kind of boring, but it's what IRS agents, that's what we do. It's what we've been doing for, since kind of like the Al Capone, right? It's following the money and kind of, it's our specialty. We're the premier financial investigators, let's say, within the United States government. So.
That PGP encrypted communication that you just mentioned, were you able to unencrypt it?
No.
So no one will ever know what that.
No, because nobody's providing their key. Well, we don't have the keys. We can't get the keys unless somebody voluntarily gives up the keys. We can't do it.
Yeah. Okay, so you file the criminal complaint. What comes next in the process of taking him down?
Criminal complaint gives us an arrest warrant. So after that, we arrest him. So following, right after to do that, you get filed and you get an arrest warrant. So we had an arrest warrant for Carl Forrest. So we went out there and we arrested him. Yeah,
and how are you involved in that?
I actually couldn't make it out there, so I asked my friends that, well, part of the investigative team was DOJ and HSI OIG. So they ended up executing the arrest warrant on the East Coast because I forgot what I had something to do where I couldn't make it out there. But I had our team from a separate IRS office assist them with the search warrant following the arrest.
Are you ever involved in making actual arrests?
Of course.
What's that like? Like, walk me through the feeling, because you're tracking these guys online.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly your work's online, right? So
my current work?
Offline work, like in terms of money and paper trails.
IRS?
Yeah.
IRS is actually pretty. So IRS is, and I'm not the authority on IRS agents, but just to give an example of prior to doing cyber work, I mean the work that we do is no different than FBI or ATF or DEA. So we are all what they call as 1811, which meaning that we're all criminal investigator special agents. Our work is essentially the same. We all write up search warrants. We all execute search warrants. We're all the whole breaking the door thing. We all do that. We do surveillance. We do affidavits. We do email search. Well, just search warrants on anything. So we all do that. Our job is no different than any other agencies. We just happen to work for IRS instead of DOJ. So we're under the Treasury, under IRS. The main IRS, we're the criminal investigators for the Internal Revenue Service. So what that entails is that we investigate criminal violations of, the tax code, Title 26. And we also do money laundering, and we help out in a lot of different cases, and a lot of cases that people aren't even aware of.
So, so these guys, you're for the most part, you're tracking them and you're putting together these complaints and getting warrants. You've never seen them in person.
No, not in person.
So what's it like when you're making an arrest? Walk me through an arrest, and what's it like finally seeing these guys in person after kind of like discovering all this stuff for months and months? Is there an adrenaline rush? Like, is it like?
Of course. I mean, anytime you do any enforcement, of course, adrenaline's going through your system. I mean, tensions at high. It's people are armed. You're clearly going to somebody else's space. You're arresting them, but you're also. It's not a personal thing. It's not personal at all. You're essentially our job is to collect the evidence. So we collect the evidence. Our job is not to essentially go out there to make a determination whether or not this person is guilty or not. Our job is to collect the evidence as the evidence is there, and get the arrest warrant or whatever it is to essentially get the guys in, and then the court, a jury, they're going to be the ones to decide. But yeah, it's not personal for me at all. I mean, is there adrenaline going through my system? Of course. Is my wife worried about it every single time we go out? Yeah, of course. It's normal.
Is
but
there a
it's
feeling of satisfaction?
Yeah, I mean the satisfaction
Can you tell
that
me about that? Like,
it's just you put in a lot of work. I don't even know how many hours I spent on Carl and Force. I mean, I was up. You could talk to Katie, but she used to get emails from me at 3 o'clock in the morning, because it's you have a job to do, and you do it, as you whatever it takes you go, and that's kind of what it was. I mean, I was up until 3 o'clock in the morning with the 1-year-old daughter. And my wife is like, "Why are you still on the computer?" It is, but so once it's done, there's a level of satisfaction that your job is done. You've done a good job. You've completed your investigation, and it actually, it is. There's a lot of just self satisfaction in the fact that you've done the job and you've done good work.
Is there a ticking clock to getting some of this stuff done, or is it just like we'll work on this and work on this, or you see shows like
First 48?
First 48 and stuff where there's a feeling like we gotta get this done now because this guy could leave the country or the state, or like he could disappear, or the boss is breathing down in my neck, like I gotta get is there a feeling of like urgency for somebody like to close a case?
Thinking the IRS is the first 48 months. Right, so just no, there is. So when you're talking about the first 48, right? That's like the first responders. That's the law enforcement. It's on the streets, and it's not like there's no urgency to the job that we do. But when it comes to these investigations, unless they're active, ongoing, most of it is historic. So of course there's urgency in getting the case done. So there's not a deal with statute of limitation. That's always a concern. But it's more of like, if you have the evidence and if it's leading you, why would you sit on it, kind of thing? Like, why not pursue it? If it's a case that you're interested in, if it's going places, if it's not just sitting there. To me, I don't like to sit on that. I want to, if I get a piece of evidence that takes me somewhere else, that's where I follow it. So for this case, I mean, we ended up going to travel internationally. Went to Slovenia. Went to Japan this past summer. I mean, it's kind of, it's wherever your case takes you. That's kind of where you're going. So it's not really a constraint, rather than you have a job to do, and if the evidence that you're gathering, it's taking you somewhere, then why not follow it? Why sit on it? But no, we don't have the first 48 hours thing. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We pause 1 second. Alex, you want to check that other camera? Probably close to 30.
It's 23 minutes.
Let's reset it. You reset?
Reset.
Okay. So go back to the arrest. Walk me through an arrest. Like, is it just you and a partner just doing it yourselves, or are you working with local law enforcement? How does it go down?
It's all of it. We do have local law enforcement with us, just to have uniform presence there. But for our arrests, it's never just me and one guy. It's we draft a formal arrest plan. Everything's planned in advance. Everything it's not like a spur of a moment thing where you're just like, all right, let's go do this. Everything's planned out. I mean, none of the work that we do is ever kind of just let's rush in, let's get this done. Everything's planned out. Things are discussed. Our plans are always we always have a plan in mind when we go somewhere to execute a warrant.
How many guys would you usually use, or does it differ based on who the criminal is? If he's like more dangerous or likely to be armed, like do you come in?
Everything is taken into consideration. I don't want to get into like a specific a number, but I think it just case by case, and availability too. It's IRS is a very unique situation right now because our numbers are dwindling. So that's kind of we're forced with reality that we don't have as many agents as we used to have, and it's kind of sometimes we have to do what we have, but it's never a specific number, and it's always case by case.
Now, how was Carl taken down? Was it in his house or office or?
He was arrested at his residence. Yeah, he was arrested at his residence as he was coming back from work. And I think when we arrested him, we found what was described as to-go bag. He had cash on him. I think cashier's checks, about $5,000. And I think he had I don't want to get into this, don't quote me on this, but I believe he had a handgun as well.
Have you been able to track down the remainder of his illicit money?
I think we got all of it. I think I got all of the money that I came across. So everything that he had, I was able to track down.
So you wrote that Force and Bridges committed the equivalent of, quote, finding a drug cartel stash and keeping it for themselves, end quote. Can you tell us exactly what they did and what that means? What you meant by that?
Could you repeat that?
Quote, finding a drug cartel stash and keeping it for themselves, end quote.
Are you referring to Carl or Shaun?
This quote was, to my knowledge, that you were sort of, I don't know if you were referring to one or the other, but both of them together.
I mean, essentially that's kind of what they did, more so for Shaun than Carl.
Okay.
Because Shaun had the keys to the kingdom for a little bit, for about a few hours. He essentially had an administrator level access to the website. Not saying that he had absolute control. It wasn't DPR level. No matter what you hear out there, that's not the case. He had whatever access the administrator had. As a criminal complaint gets into, he had Curtis Green's administrative level access, who was a customer service rep. He had the ability to go in, reset passwords, pins. So essentially, it was the cyber equivalent of cops going into a house, a stash house, finding money, and then just basically taking it. So if you kind of can imagine it, that's essentially what happened. Shaun got the keys to the drug house, went in, and took all the dope money. What happened is that Shaun had, when Curtis Green was a cooperator, I think it came out, he was at the sentencing, he came out and kind of told his story, which was actually a good thing. I think should have been heard, but what happened is that when they arrested him, he turned his Silk Road keys to the Baltimore Task Force. The Baltimore Task Force then took that and, specifically Shaun, and then went in and raided all the drug dealers' money. Not just Silk Road money. He took some money from Silk Road as well. So there's like a little bit of stash that's used for various things. But he essentially went in and did account takeovers on vendors and took all their money. So that'd be the equivalent of finding the stash house. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess real quick, I don't want to spend too much time on Shaun, but who was Shaun Bridges, and how did Shaun and Carl get together? Because they seem to be from two completely different entities.
No, Shaun and him were actually pretty close. They're part of the same task force. Shaun and Carl were part of the Baltimore task force. And I think Shaun's story, even though it wasn't a lot of time spent on the complaint, what he did was pretty bad. And it kind of came out in the whole sentencing, whatever, but his actions almost got somebody killed. In a lot of levels, I think, based on his conduct, he was a lot worse than Carl. Carl went in, he did this thing, he took money he sold information, but what Shaun did had real life consequences on somebody else's life. That somebody being Curtis Green. I don't know if you guys were there at the sentencing or not, but the guy was very affected by what happened. Not only, as he said, with the death threats, but the fact that he didn't leave his house for months. He was legitimately scared for his life. And if Ulbricht had not gone to Carl to execute the hit, if he had gone with somebody else, who knows what would have happened. So I think what Shaun did was absolutely reckless, and like the judge said, it was motivated by greed, and I was completely surprised when I found that it was actually Shaun who did it. So I was completely blown away. But and Shaun was actually a lot worse about his conduct following that. He had plenty of opportunities to come clean with what he did. But instead of doing that, he actually masked his crime even more. I mean, it was pretty publicized seizure that he did. I think it was the first seizure of its time related to digital currency. I mean, he was one of the individuals who seized. He was the Mt. Gox money. So the Dwala, whatever the money that was, it was in 2013. It was a huge news. You know, it was the first thing somebody ever did against Mt. Gox. They seized all these millions of dollars. Mt. Gox was the exchange that he used to launder the money that he stole from Silk Road. Actually, 2 days after he cashed out all his bitcoins, he ended up seizing the money from Mt. Gox, from the same exchange that he laundered the money with. So in that sense, you know, they were together. I mean, they're part of the same task force. They're both on a Baltimore task force. It's a multi-agency task force, but it was Baltimore. I mean, IRS was there, Secret Service was there, DEA, HSI. That's the task force that he was part of.
Do you have any idea of, like, are you privy to any conversations they had of planning this? Like, was there a moment where they sat down and they were like, look, this is what we're going to do, all right?
Not that I'm
Nobody's
aware.
paying attention. So no idea.
To my surprise, no. I mean, you would think, right? I mean, what's the likelihood of two crooked special agents on the same task force? But based on everything I've seen so far, that appears to be what happened. But that's what it is, right? It's back in 2013, what was it, Bitcoin, right? People thought, oh, this is anonymous. Oh, I can do. So I guess in that sense, when you go back to that time, law enforcement was kind of scrambling to figure out what to do with this, and to them it was perfect. I mean, like, who's going to track this stuff down? Oh, it's all numbers from one thing to another. So it was kind of probably an easy thing to do. It was like, who's going to follow it? I mean, the people just kind of just threw their hands up when they saw Bitcoin, right? So to them it was perfect. You have access, you had the means and the opportunity. So I guess given that, they took their chance.
So why was all this completely kept out of the Silk Road trial?
Why was kept out of the Silk Road trial? That was the decision that was made because of the sensitivity of the investigation. So I don't really... Man, you guys should really talk with Katie about this.
Okay. In terms of cyber investigations, because it's just something that the general public doesn't really understand. Like what is evidence on the internet? Like what does that mean? Like, people think of evidence, they think like there's a knife there, it has a blood stain on it. Like, what you guys are doing is completely different.
So what is evidence? For example, Carl Force. We have a message from French Maid, right? French Maid emails Ross Ulbricht saying, I have this name that this company gave to law enforcement related to the name that you use when you create an account on such and such exchange. So we have that piece right there. That's the only thing we have. So where do you would go from there? Okay, so clearly saying to Carl. So that's already indicated that might be somebody, even though it seems like totally out there that you wouldn't think it's Carl, but that's something. Okay, so we know that. What else do we know? We know that, okay, so he communicated with Ross Ulbricht. Okay, so we communicated with Ross Ulbricht, so I'm going to go back. So we know that they seized the communication between him as part of the Silk Road. We know that we have his diary. Okay, so I'm going to go read through the diary. So I'm going to read through the diary. Ross Ulbricht said on such and such a date that he paid French Maid $100,000 for information. Okay, so what day was that on? So we have a date range. We're going to go back and see on how much was Bitcoin worth in those days. So I'm assuming he paid in Bitcoin. I don't think he paid cash. So I'm going to go back and look at the conversion rate on Bitcoin on date. Okay, so it was worth, I remember it was let's say $100. So I'm going to convert that amount into Bitcoin. Okay, so it's approximately 770 Bitcoins. Okay, so Carl says the guy signs the name Carl. We know how much in Bitcoin there was sent. We have Carl's Bitcoin accounts. Was this amount deposited into his account? Yes, there was. So let's track it back. Where did this money come from? We're going to go back and look at the Silk Road evidence that was seized during the investigation, right? Okay, sure enough, the money's coming out of Ross Ulbricht's account, going directly to Carl. That's pretty good evidence right there. So that's what we call evidence. It's looking through, it's analyzing everything, even though it's cyber. But you don't end there, Like, for example, okay, we have people who are working on Silk Road, or we have people who are, let's say, green, or other people. We go out and interview them, because you can't just rely on evidence that way. You actually have to go out there. You're going to have witnesses. You have to go out there and interview these people, whether it's in the United States or abroad.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that next. What's an interview like? Are you nervous? Like, is it like how does it go down? Is it like you see on TV, you know, like Law and Order? Like, are you grilling them?
It's not like that. I mean, at least for federal law enforcement. I mean, we're not.
Do you bring them in? Do you do it in their home?
It depends. We try to accommodate them. It depends on too. Is it a target interview or is it a witness? That all depends. I mean, depending on that, the terms may change. The level, I guess your tone may change, or your body language may change. Everything changes, depending on who you're talking to, depending on the setting. At the end of the day, you're not trying to trick them into anything. I mean, you're out there, you're getting your point across. But if I'm trying to interview a witness, I'm going to try to work on their time. I'm either going to go to their house or bring it in, whatever's better for them. We try to work. Well, IRS, we try to we have good customer service. So.
But how do you prepare for something like that? Like, how do you learn how to interview somebody? Is it innate? Like where did you learn how to do this? Because I feel like I wouldn't know how to.
Are you doing an interview me right?
Yeah, but it's a completely different context.
It's the same thing. You're trying to get information from me, right? So that's you're getting information from me. It's kind of like it's something you pick up. Not everybody's good at it, but it's a skill you pick up. You're interviewing me right now. Your goal is to get information from me. You try to build rapport. You try to kind of ease them into it and really get the information or the questions that you want.
Yeah.
So whether it's to sneak them in somehow, but it's we are academy.
But if it's a criminal and somebody who doesn't want to give you any information, and you're giving them an opportunity, like, look, there's an opportunity to come clean right now.
Yeah, I mean,
how do you prepare for something like that? How did you learn how to do that?
Yeah, it's training. No, it is, and it honestly is training. Our academy is actually pretty great. We have probably one of the hardest law enforcement academies in law enforcement. It's close to 7 months. Is pretty high failure rate as well, and they do train us pretty well. And a lot of it is training, a lot of experience, being out there with senior agents, kind of get that exposure and working the cases and really know your case too. I mean, you got to know what you're talking about. You can't just go in and just BS your way through an interview. Be like, yeah, so tell me about this. No, you got to know. You got to know more about it. And usually when you go into an interview, to the point where I'm going to ask you questions that I already know the answers to, and that's kind of the thing that I'm going to gauge your honesty with me as well. So you want to be at that point where you want to go into an interview to kind of verify the information that you already know, or maybe get new information. But it's all about preparation and just training and just kind of really know the case and the topic that you're talking about.
Okay, so one last thing with the Forrest Bridges trial.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything, you were at the sentencing, right?
Carl's, I couldn't make it for Shaun.
Okay, was there anything that came out in the sentencing that surprised you? That you were like, oh shit, I didn't know that. Like, I didn't get that.
No, I mean, I lived that case for a decent amount of time. I pretty much knew everything that Carl and Shaun were going to say. I knew whether or not something was truthful or not. So I knew a lot about this case, and none of it was surprise. I guess it's not up to me to decide. It's up to
what about the Curtis Green?
That he was going to come?
Yeah.
I was actually surprised he was going to come. I didn't really... I was surprised it was I think it was like a last moment thing. I didn't think he was going to show up. I knew his story, and I think it's a good thing that, his story was heard. So there's not, people are not going to be guessed, oh, who's CG? I mean, people already knew it was Curtis Green, but I mean, he came out, he told his story. I think it was a good thing, and I think it was one of the reasons why probably the judge went with the higher end of the sentencing guidelines. And again, do I think he should have got more time with what he did? I'm not really the decision maker when it comes to that. Personally, yeah, but again, I'm not a decision maker, and that's something that I can't really. I don't really have any influence over that. So.
Are you familiar with Dark Wallet?
Yeah.
What exactly is that?
Is it even functional anymore? I thought it was defined. I think Amir talked. I thought they stopped working on that. I wasn't even sure if they're still working on it. I mean, I'm familiar with it. I'm kind of in that whole digital currency world. So I am familiar with it, but I think it's supposed to mask your transactions, right? It's supposed to be another, not a tumbling or money laundering pool. That's kind of supposed to just make your transactions more anonymous.
And who were? Because I saw that like the crowdfunding site and all that, so it's like
It's like a Mirtaki project,
it's
right?
pretty above board and pretty publicized. But just so we know, to summarize it, like who was behind that, and what were they trying to achieve?
I think that project was initiated. Wasn't it? I think Mirtaki, right, was one of the. I think they're really, really big fans of anonymity. Yeah. I don't know exactly what their goals were, and I can't really comment on it because I don't know too much about it. It's not really a huge focus of my work. But I'm guessing it's just another way to, I guess, mask your transactions so you can't go out there and trace what if another DEA agent decides to steal more Bitcoin. So.
Would you say that this type of software makes your job harder?
I mean, that's the goal, right? That's the goal, is to make our jobs harder. Yes, I mean that's the goal of the software, is to mask your transactions so it's harder to do what we do. Or is that going to be the end all to it? No. Are we going to find a way to to overcome that? That's what we've been doing. I mean, we're going to adapt. It's going to take us a while, but I'm sure there are good people who work in law enforcement. There's a lot of hard work that goes into our investigations, and I'm sure that is it going to be harder, or maybe it isn't going to be impossible. I don't know, but we're going to try our best to actually overcome that. So it is going to be harder, of course. I mean, that's the goal.
And who is this guy Mirtaki?
Who is this guy Mirtaki? Doesn't he describe himself as a crypto anarchist? Isn't that his whole self? Yeah. I mean, that's his thing. I think he was involved in that. What else was he involved in? Was he involved in like some of the Bitcoin exchanges? BitInstant? Was he involved in that? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it was part of that too.
No, BitInstant was Charlie Shrem.
I know, but I think Mirtaki he had something to do with one of the. I don't remember which exchange. I don't know, but he's part of that whole community. He was on that movie Deep Web. I think he was on that too. Yeah, I know. He kind of. I don't really know what he's doing these days. I know he was involved in Dark Wallet. I don't know what happened after that. I don't know if they tried to push him off to the side and start a new crowdfunded project.
What was the case of the BitInstant and Charlie Shrem thing?
That was actually an IRS case too. That was my buddy Gary Alford's investigation. So Gary Alford, being the IRS agent out of New York, that was his investigation. Another thing that he did was he identified Ross Ulbricht as the operator of Silk Road. So IRS had a pretty big role in just Silk Road and Silk Road related investigations as well. So.
Well, what was the Charlie Shrem BitInstant case?
Charlie Shrem BitInstant case. Again, not my case. I know a good deal about it, and Gary Alford would be a better source for this. But my understanding is that Charlie Shrem ran BitInstant. BitInstant was a Bitcoin exchange, or allowed people to facilitate that, and he was assisting a Silk Road vendor during the laundering of Bitcoin. So essentially, he knew that the guy was getting Bitcoins from Silk Road and was still helping him out, even though he was working as the compliance director, I think, at BitInstant. That was his job description. So it's essentially a job that's supposed to be there to prevent that from happening. He was facilitating the laundering.
So he, basically what came out in the news, that it was like less than $1 million worth of Bitcoin that he was alleged to have laundered, and he got 2 years in prison. Is that standard? Like, is that a normal sort of sentencing for doing that kind of thing, or were they trying to like make an example out of it?
I don't know what was in the judge's head with that when that happened. I'm going to say that from our perspective. So our involvement with how much time he gets, it ends basically when they're charged. So we gather evidence. We're going to recommend whatever is prosecuted through the prosecutors. You guys are going to be talking to Katie. So Katie's the prosecutor. So I'm an agent. She's the prosecutor. She kind of, I do the investigation. She does the prosecuting. But essentially, we charged somebody. Let's say I charge Shrem, or you'll talk to Gary. He'll tell you a little better. I don't know exactly. I can't really say as whether or not the time he got was fair or not. Charlie pled guilty to the charges. The guidelines suggested he should get this much amount of time. Based on that, that's what the judge has to adhere by. It was the guidelines for specific charge. So I don't think anybody's out there, knowing law enforcement, knowing how the government works, nobody's out there trying to be going after Bitcoin or end Bitcoin. That's not how things work. I mean, are people attracted to Bitcoin investigations because it's new and it's different? Absolutely. But it's not like we're trying to choke off and kill Bitcoin. At least I'm not. Maybe somebody else is. I don't know.
Well, what can we do to stop things like dark wallet, which are, what can we do to stop those type of tools, or can you even? Are you just in a place where you just react to it?
Well, it's code, right? I mean, it's what is dark wallet? I mean, it's code. How are you going to train it down once it goes out there and it's released? I don't know. I don't know if honestly, I don't know. I don't know if we could. If it's really just code that's released out there and people are going to use it and work off of it. No, I know I said this before, but shutting down the internet might work, but I'm not sure if that's a good thing. But I don't know. I don't really have a solution on how you would stop that. How do we stop people from using it? I don't know.
Or even creating it, I guess. You just can't. So you're just basically, you react to it. You have to just...
Yeah. I mean, it's not, it's, what is that movie? God, with Tom Cruise.
Mission Impossible.
No, the other one. The other one where he goes back.
Edge of Tomorrow.
No.
Vanilla Sky.
No, it's the one where Collateral. It's the one where he tries to stop the crime before it happened. What is that?
Oh,
Minority Report.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you gonna do? Go and get him for creating this money laundering software before they even create it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so what led you to a career in cybercrime investigations at the IRS?
Nothing. I mean, I started as an IRS agent. I've been I've kind of worked for the government since 2006. Started with the state of California, moved on to IRS in 2011. Kind of just, I've always been into technology, computers, technology. So just my interest in this, and I saw certain things that were happening, and then cryptocurrency and how there was potential for money laundering, and that's kind of where what I started working at the time. There wasn't really too much interest back then. Not a lot of people were working it. So from there, I partnered up with Katie Hahn out in San Francisco, and we've been kind of working exclusively on these type of cases since then. So that was about 2012 or early 2013. So when we started working these cases. So first one, we both worked the Ripple Labs investigation. That was another case that we did. One of our cases that was out of San Francisco, and then I have numerous cases that are in the pipeline related to everything. Can't really talk about them, but I'm not just a task force body. I'm still working cases. I'm still investigating cyber-related crimes.
Are you passionate about this type of work?
I am.
Why?
It's a super cliche, right? I want to change the no, but I mean it's important work. It has real world impact. You go to work and it feels like what you're doing matters. Could I go to get a job in the private sector and make a ton more money? Probably. But I'm not gonna have the same level of satisfaction I get from this job. I'm not gonna be up until 3 o'clock in the morning tracing bitcoins, like I did before. It's gonna be the same, because what you're doing was actually gonna matter, and this might actually put away some people who should not be out in the open. So I think that's what it is. I think that's kind of the main driving forces behind it. It's not money, for sure. So, but it's a job satisfaction.
Is there something about the guys that you investigate, like some of them that some of the criminals that you track? There's something that you respect about them, or something nice that you can say about them?
Most of them are pretty good at what they do. I mean, they're not dumb. They're smart. It's we say we get the low-hanging fruit, but when you get the guys who actually are good at what they do, good at the crime, you got to kind of respect that almost, is that they have to make us work very, very hard in order to catch them. So at some level, you have to respect that, because do I respect what they've done? No, but I do respect the level of sophistication, I guess, that took to pull some of the stuff off. So I guess I do respect that.
What do you see as some of the greatest challenges in cybercrime in the future?
Encryption.
How so?
Just everything that we deal with when it comes to whether it's PGP or whether it's, you know, some of the encryption that's forced on by some of the companies that we deal with, some of the tech companies. That is a huge concern, because knowing that there are people out there, even, you know, not commenting on terrorists, but I mean there are terrorists out there clearly that use the technology, and it kind of completely not completely, but leaves us in a black. So why would you want that? Why would you want to keep people who are trying to keep this guy from committing, you know, these terrible things and, you know, breaking the law or killing people, from being able to do their job to actually prevent this from happening? Why would you? I mean, you know, I should give her background. So, not saying that, you know, I'm a fan of this because I was born in a communist country, but I was born in the Soviet Union. So I was born there. I immigrated to the United States in 1997. So I'm kind of aware of, like, you know, how much power or how much influence, you know, the state can, you know, push on their people. I'm not saying communist level work. I'm talking about just that the technology itself is making our job a lot harder than it has to be, and it's, you know, potentially keeping us from saving lives.
So how do we as a society toe that line between keeping, you know, allowing you guys to do your job and do it to the best of your abilities, but also not, you know, not leaving all the doors open to all the you know, our phones and everything, that, like, hackers can come in and people can come in and do nefarious things at the same time.
I'm not.
Can I cut real quick, guys? I'm sorry. There's 29:58.
Good. Cool.
Probably not smart enough to answer this question. And I'm not one of those, you know, I'm not a decision maker. I don't know. All I'm saying is that this is what we have to deal with. So people out there, the tech companies and the government, they got to get together and come up to a solution, something. And I don't know what it is. I don't. I'm not going to say that I know the solution to this problem, but it clearly is a problem. You know, you don't want to, you know, violate people's rights or to privacy, but at the same time, you have to be able to do your job and catch these guys who are trying to hurt the public. So how do you balance that? I don't know.
Okay, cool. Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.